Welcome back to another edition of Baseball for Maniacs. So, kind of ongoing of the trends of players' previews, I did want to touch on a player that almost certainly won't be returning to the Philadelphia Phillies, but is technically still on the roster. That's Nick Castellanos. So I expect between now and February 11th, when pitchers and catchers report, I expect Nick Castellanos to either be traded or outright released. And this video, I kind of wanted to go over Nick Castellanos' time in Philadelphia, the ups, the downs, everything in between. The title of this episode is going to be The Fall of Nick Castellanos because it did not end well, but I don't want us to forget what Nick Castellanos meant to this team. Now, let's just get into it. The contract, 5 years, 100 million. So obviously he did not perform to his contract, but before I get into all the details, I really just want to give my opinion on Nick Castellanos. I love Nick Castellanos. I love the guy. Especially love the father, just a human being in general. Nick Castellanos is a great guy. He's a different individual, and his teammates have said that, people around him, not in a bad way. He just does things kind of to the beat of his own drum, which I kind of personally respect. The thing about Nick Castellanos is he doesn't have a fake bone in his body. He's going to tell you how he feels. He's going to be upfront about it. Yes, he has his interesting quotes. They call him the artist. Like, he's a different type of guy, but he's real to where he was a great teammate. Yes, he kind of clashed with Rob Thompson, and we'll get into that. But what I remember most about Nick Castellanos, man, is him taking out Liam for batting practice every day, him working on fly balls with his son, him giving his son that experience that obviously 99% of people don't have. But because I remember I went to a game in Atlanta because I wanted to visit the stadium. I live in Florida. So I got to the game early. What do you know? Nick Castellanos was out there with his son, to where we look at these professional athletes, and of course, what they do on the field is kind of what we hold into the highest realm. But you got to peek behind the curtain and just kind of look at who the person is, to where, of course, like, I'm a podcaster, right? I criticize players, I give them their praise, I analyze the game. But you also have to look at the type of person he is. And for me, of course, like I said, I don't think he's lived up to the contract. He's swung at sliders in the dirt. He's made me lose my top. But before I go into all this stuff, I kind of just wanted to give my honest opinion of him. And in me personally, I think he's a great dude. My favorite moment in Nick Castellanos is I was in attendance for this. It was game 2 against the Mets. We all know that game, the game tying home run, the walk off. But what I'll remember most, and what really gets me emotional, is when he was going to his son. Like, there's a video with his son, like, behind home plate, and they're just embracing that moment. Because me personally, me and my father, our relationship is centered around baseball. We grew up going to games at CBP every single year. I eventually moved to Florida. He still stays in New Jersey. But I kid you not, 99% of the conversations we have are about the Phils. And for me and my father to be in attendance at that game and kind of see that moment unfold in real time, it was just something special. So I kind of wanted to lay that out before I go into the whole Nick Castellanos saga. So like I said, he signed a 5-year, $100 million contract. He didn't live up to it, but let's go year by year. So 2022, his first year, he struggled mightily in the regular season. I was thinking about, man, let's get Matt Vierling in there for the playoffs. Let's kind of switch it up because it was his worst season with the Philadelphia Phillies. You can say 2025, but man, 2022 was rough. And it was his first year in Philly, adjusting to a new city, adjusting to the fans. We all saw it when he got into it with Jim Salisbury about, did you hear the boos? That was a stupid question. And that goes into my point, like, even though Nick Castellanos was going through that, he was still real about it. Like, for Jim Salisbury, and I like Jim Salisbury. I think he's a great reporter. I watched him on the Philly show. To ask a professional athlete, did you hear the boos? Was one of the dumbest questions any reporter has ever asked. Again, I like Jim Salisbury, but that Nick Castellanos was completely in the right to come back at him and say, did I hear the boos? That's a stupid question. But it just goes to the point, like, that's who Nick Castellanos is. So the regular season was terrible. But let us not forget the Nick Castellanos game. I mean, there's a few of them in the playoffs, but in 2022, game 1 against the Braves, 4 hits. That diving catch in the 9th inning to prevent a triple, William Contreras hit it. It's just like, those moments matter so much more than the regular season. Because if Nick Castellanos doesn't have that game one performance, most likely we don't win that series and go to the World Series. So that's the things I'm going to remember. Of course, when you look at a baseball player, you have to look at the regular season more than the postseason, because 162 sample size over a couple games in the playoffs. Yes, you got to get your players for your next year who are most likely going to perform through the totality, not just a small sample size. But that game one alone, I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible to me. And then the catch in game one of the World Series to literally save game one. I know we didn't win that World Series, but that kind of stuff matters. And then 2023, right? His first half, he was our best hitter. Bryce was out, coming back from Tommy John. Nick Castellanos kept the Phillies in the 2023 season. Because if you guys remember, we started off the year 25-32. We were not in the playoffs, but Nick Castellanos kept us afloat. He struggled towards the end to where they pushed him down to seventh in the lineup. But the playoffs, man, I mean, his performance against the Braves in game 3 and game 4, that's what I'm going to remember. The home run against Strider, chills, dude. Absolute chills. And it's like, of course, it didn't end well with his performance in the National League Championship Series. After game 1, he went hitless. But everyone kind of went hitless, right? So it's like, I don't put that on Nick Castellanos. It's just, he's a streaky player. He is who he is. Now, when we signed him to that contract, we expected a little more consistency. I don't think we ever thought he was going to be the Cincinnati version of 2021, where he had 300 average, 914 OPS, I believe. But somewhere in the middle would have been nice. But yeah, 2023 against the Braves, that's going to live in Phillies history forever. And then 2024, the start was bad. Like, he had a rough April. Rob Thompson stuck with him, played him every day, even though fans like myself, fans in the media, were calling for giving him a couple days off, maybe putting in a new outfielder there just to leave some stress off Nick. But he rode with Nick. Nick played the entire season, 162. And then the performance against the Mets, like, it was only him and Harper that had any sort of success from the offensive side. And I go back to my point of game 2 against the Mets. Me personally, that's my favorite game I've ever been to, and really my favorite baseball game of all time. Combine that with the fact of how great of a game it was. I got to experience it with my father, and just what CBP turned into in a matter of minutes, because in the 6th inning, when we were down 3-0, you could hear a pin drop in the stadium. It was the most eeriest time I've ever been at CBP, and then Harper hits the home run. And then before you have a chance to catch your breath, Nick Castellanos ties the game. That is the loudest CBP has ever been, and it was the most electric feeling I could ever describe. And I could barely even describe it, because I was in like third base side, third deck, first row. So like, I'm still pumping up, high-fiving people from the Harper home run, and then I see Castellanos swing on the second pitch, and it goes right by me. I'm like, no effing way. He just did that. The game is tied. We're going to win the series. We're going to win the World Series. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way, but in that moment, that euphoric moment, I attribute that to Nick Castellanos. And that's what I'm going to remember most about the Nick Castellanos era, is the playoff moments. It's the guy stepping up when it matters, because obviously we haven't won a World Series because the totality group has not stepped up, but Nick Castellanos has. Now let's get into the 2025 season. So he started off fine, not great, but it really hit a crossroads in Miami when he got benched. So I think it was 4-1 or 4-2. Rob Thompson subs him out. Johan Rojas comes in, and he takes Nick Castellanos out for defensive purposes. Logically, it makes sense, right? Nick Castellanos, his strong suit is definitely not his defensive abilities. But apparently Nick Castellanos said something inappropriate to Rob, to where he got benched. And I don't blame Rob Thompson for benching him. I actually applauded him, because it kind of showed Rob Thompson had some cojones, to where you can't take that level of disrespect. But the fallout afterwards is what led to the title of this video, The Fall of Nick Castellanos, because the Philadelphia media ate that up. And I don't consider myself a Philadelphia Phillies media guy, because I'm just a guy with a podcast, small following, looking to grow that. But I understand that the main objective of Philadelphia media, not myself, I don't like to be claimed in any of that kind of group, is to get clicks. You see the WIP, and I love WIP, but their job is to get clicks and engagement. So they took that story with Rob Thompson benching Nick Castellanos, and they ran with it the entire year to where it was always a question, it was always a shadow around the team of, well, he's not playing well. You already benched him. Is there going to be a point to where you actually bench Nick Castellanos for good? And essentially, they did. He became a platoon player. When Harrison Bader came to the team, it was clear Bader was the center fielder. He had to play every day. Excuse me. And then Max Kepler started playing well. We eventually know why he was playing well, but it was Kepler against righties, it was Cassie against lefties. And the media just day after day after day just were berating Castellanos about, how do you feel about your role? Are you happy about your role? Of course he's not happy that he's not playing every day. So ask your question one time, but they kept piling on and on and on. And it really hit ahead that Arizona series where Nick Castellanos hit his 250th homer. And the first question is, are you happy? Are you willing to do whatever it takes to win a championship? And Nick Castellanos is like, dude, I just hit my 250th homer. We're trying to win a World Series. Why would I care about my playing time or make that a problem that you guys are creating? He basically said, you guys are creating a narrative to where that's the dark side of Philadelphia media. It's like, in August towards September, when that series was happening, we were playing our best baseball. Philadelphia was alive. The notion around the team was, they're going to get it done. They're going to win a World Series. But what is Philadelphia media going to do? They're going to try to tear that down. And I don't think there's any malice intent of the sense of like, they want the Phillies to lose, but it's like, read the room, guys. Like, that is not the time to be asking the question. But just that combined with the benching, with his performance, you kind of knew it was the end. And then the playoffs came up, and he had that big hit in game 4. He had that double in game 2, but overall, he didn't have a great series against the Dodgers, similar to the other hitters. The only quote I really didn't like about Nick Castellanos in that year was when, after we lost game 2, and his comments about the fans was, it was like, it's wind in your sails when you're doing well, and then when you're doing bad, it's wind in your face. I don't know if I got that quote right, but essentially what he was saying was, it's great when you're doing well, but it could be very detrimental when you're not doing well, to where you get the boo birds out, you get the stadium being eerie. And his comment wasn't wrong. It just was wrong place, like wrong time to say that. Like, you're down 2-0 against the Dodgers. The city is probably the most toxic it's ever been, to where maybe not say that, Nick Castellanos. But here's the thing. Nick Castellanos is real. He's going to say how he feels, to where I respect that, but there's a balance of what's going on. So it's just like, you kind of knew the end was near, and the end is here. Dave Dombrowski essentially said about Nick Castellanos, he's not going to be on the team anymore. A change of scenery is good for everyone, to where everyone already kind of knew that. But it's like, for you to say that, Dave Dombrowski, I think, like, you just completely plummeted his trade value. Now, everyone knows he had almost zero trade value with that contract, but maybe if you don't say those words, maybe you can find a team to eat $5 million of the contract. They were never eating half of the contract, right? That was just wishful thinking. But now, based on Dave Dombrowski's comments, to where everyone knows they're actively shopping him, everyone knows he's not going to be on the team next year, I think that plummeted his value to almost zero, to where I firmly believe we are heading to a straight Nick Castellanos release. And it's going to be happening soon, because there is no way the Philadelphia Phillies organization can have him in the clubhouse, because the Philadelphia media will eat that up, in the sense of, like, if it's Clearwater, it's the first day, and Nick Castellanos is at his locker, the first question is going to be, do you want to be here? How's the trade rumors? How's the release rumors? How do you feel that you don't have a starting job? The Philadelphia Phillies aren't going to let that happen, to where I think he's going to be released in the coming days. But essentially, that's the fall of Nick Castellanos. It was, he didn't live up to the contract. He had great playoff moments. He was a great teammate, but essentially, it is time to move on from him. And I don't think the contract was a success. I've said that on numerous times, to where the contract they gave out to him and Taijuan Walker has prohibited the Phillies from making other moves in previous offseasons similar to this one. But what I'll remember most about Nick Castellanos is the playoff moments. It's the moments with his son. It's the vibe he kind of brought to Philly, because he is as Philly as it gets. He's real. He's going to tell you exactly how he feels. Fans might not like it, but he's real, right? Like game 2 against the Mets, before he had the homer and the walk-off, the camera panned to him when we're giving him the Bronx cheer, myself included, and he says, "These effing people." He mouths it to where I respect the hell out of that. Like, how would you feel if 45,000 of your fans that are supposed to be supporting you are booing you? Now, I think that was justified. I think it's always justified to boo when you're not performing to the level that you should. But in the moment, a player's reaction like that, I think, is also warranted. You can have two things at once, right? You can boo, but you can also be upset that you're getting booed. It's like you can't just whatever I'm trying to say. I just think that moment encompasses who Nick Castellanos is. So I kind of want to get this video out before he does eventually get released or traded, most likely released, because I am doing Phillies players previews. And technically he still is on the team. And I'm not going to get into my player preview for Nick Castellanos because I don't think he's going to be on the Philadelphia Phillies. But I wanted to get this video out and I want to say thank you, Nick Castellanos. Obviously, it didn't end well, but I think he's a good dude. I wish him nothing but the best in his family, and I hope he catches on with another team and he performs well because he's a good guy, man. I like Nick Castellanos. You guys might feel differently. You guys might feel the same. Let me know what you guys think of Nick Castellanos and his 4 years with the Philadelphia Phillies. So that'll do it for this episode of Baseball for Maniacs. You guys have a good one.